as he mentioned, my name is Ward Blatch. I'm a CPA CA from rural Nova Scotia, and there's my accounting practices email address. I'm also an instructor with K2E Canada. We do training both in person and, well, these days, not too much in person. We also have a wide selection of webinars, and if you're interested in getting your skills up and improved there with Excel or remote work or a whole variety of topics, you can check that out at shop.k2e.ca. For those of you from Nova Scotia, I am, that's a picture of me paddling on Lake Rosignol. It's the largest fully freshwater lake we have in the province. Compared to what you have out west, it's a tiny little puddle, but for Nova Scotia, it's a big lake. So I do enjoy canoeing. Looking forward to our national parks being opened up again so we can get out and enjoy the outdoors. Hopefully you're doing something like that, getting out for a walk on a regular basis today and every day. I do a little walk in my backyard here. It's about a 4-kilometer walk. We try to get that in at least once a day, just to get out of the office. Fortunately for me, I haven't seen that big a change in my daily workflow because I do practice. My accounting practice is in our home. We do have an office in our garage, so we've been working from home for more than 10 years now, so it hasn't been a big change for us. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover in the session. We're going to talk about what it can do for business, and we'll also talk about how it impacts self-employed individuals. I did this presentation up a week ago. We have had some minor changes in the past week. I'll mention those when I get to them. Today, they did mention in the Premier's talked about, I'm sorry, it wasn't the Premier, it was the Prime Minister, did talk about actually listing everybody that takes advantage of these, all the businesses that take advantage of some of these programs. So that's an interesting little concept that effectively will be disclosing everybody's reduction in income of at least 30%, revenue of at least 30%, which is kind of interesting. I do recommend, if you're not an accountant, that you do speak to your accountant. I know in our little practice, we've been extremely busy talking to our client base because what is the best option for them under these different plans does vary quite a bit depending on their specific circumstances. So I do encourage you to talk to whoever is your accountant for your organization. Hopefully with the material that we cover off today, combined with them, you can make the correct choices on what's your best options. We're going to talk about a lot of different benefits or policies or whatever you'd like to refer to these as today. And to give me an idea of what you consider to be the most important, I'm going to ask you a quick polling question. This is the first of 4 polling questions, which you should respond to. I believe they're offering CPD for this session. So the first question, I'll just shoot that out to you now. What economic response plan are you most interested in learning about today? I've only listed a few of them, but there are many others available as well. And I'm just going to leave that open for a minute or two. Tala, if there's any questions that I should be responding to, I doubt there is at this point. But
no, you're all good, Ward.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I'm not sure how long I should leave this open, maybe another 20 or 30 seconds here for you to respond to that polling question.
And just wanted, on that previous note you had on the questions, just wanted to let everyone know, you should see a questions panel, which is different from the chat panel that you were using earlier. So if you have any questions for Ward, please go ahead and drop those in there. I'll be monitoring those throughout the session and presenting them to Ward.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. I should have done that myself. Thank you. All right, haven't had any new votes in the last little bit. Let's go push that out so that everybody can see what those results were. I just got to find my mouse. It's on one of these screens. Show results to everybody. So as you can see, most people are interested in the emergency wage subsidy. Yes, for sure, that is a big access benefit that we should all be taking advantage of if we can. I also think that most of us in small business should be looking at the access to credit. There's a great program there with up to a $10,000 component being forgivable. So that is something else that I think we should all be having a look at in our organizations. So let's go get ourselves started in with what the programs are. And I've got a list of them here. We're going to cover each one of these off in the next hour or a little less than that, perhaps. So the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. It covers a 12-week period back to March 15th. The catch is you have to have a decline in revenue of 30%, 15% in the month of March. Now they do have, this is actually, you're going to be able to apply for this on Monday, the 27th. And I do have a link in the slide deck that you'll be able to download that will take you to the page where you can go in and go through the steps to do the application. I would encourage you to look at that before Monday when it opens up. There are a few calculations that you must go through in order to be able to take advantage of this. Now, the advantage that this has is it's actually a little bit more money than the other subsidy that they're offering people. It's $847 per week, up to. And so you multiply that by 4, that's more than the $2,000 benefit. So it is a better option, and it does allow people to continue to work. So the 75% of your baseline remuneration means that you can have up to 75% of what somebody was making with a maximum in the week. What is $11.23, I believe it is the exact amount that you are subject to being restricted. If you made less than that amount the weeks prior, then it's 75% of whatever that is. So you actually don't have to pay the people their full wage. You could just pay them 75% of their wages and have it fully funded by this emergency wage subsidy. If you have told people to go home and you're continuing to pay those people, leave with pay, you can also receive a 100% refund on the employer portions of both EI and CPP. There is a great template. What I like about the template here that I have a link to is that it includes this and the 10% wage subsidy. So the one that on the Revenue Canada site, the link is in the notes there for you. It only deals with the 75%. Okay. So there's a lot of restrictions around this. I think the biggest one is that decline in revenue for us. I would like to, before I talk about the extending the work share program, I would like to mention also that for the Canadian wage subsidy, you do have choices on what periods you want to select to compare to. So if your income has, your revenue has declined from March 2019 compared to March 2020 by 15%. So March 2020 is 15% less than March 2019. You're eligible for this plan. If you want to, instead of using the prior year, you can use the average of your January and February 2020 revenue. And again, it's 15% in this first period. Here's the catch. If you pick the January-February average for 2020, you must continue to use that as you calculate out your eligible periods for March, April, and May. So there is a catch in there. At this time, they just announced this today, they're going to allow you, if you qualified in the March 15th, April 11th, that's our first reporting period for this. If you qualified in that period the 15% drop in revenue, you're going to be considered to have qualified for the weeks in April as well. And then this will allow, because of the difference in cutoffs, since they started in the middle of the month, it'll allow you to make the claim, even though you don't actually know what your April revenue is going to look like. So this is just a way for us to be able to continue going forward there, making the claims as we need to. For revenue components, we do have to have eligible revenue. That's selling of goods or services, and you have to pick your accounting system, whether you want to do that with cash basis or accrual basis. I would suggest you do what you'd normally do in your accounting and use that as your method going forward. There is fines and penalties if you've made the decision to try to do this and you didn't actually qualify. It's 100% return of the benefit, the wage subsidy. If it's considered to be done in the case of fraud, it's 125% repayment. So just be careful with those to make sure that you are in the right area and have met that requirement of the decline in revenue. Okay. When we go to calculate out the subsidy amount under the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, they now have, in addition to that spreadsheet I have at the Canada Revenue Agency, they now have a spreadsheet available there for you so that you can go in and do the calculations. So you'll go put in your calculations to find out how much you're going to get returned back to you. Okay, so the magic number here, $1,129.33 a week in pay. That will give you $847 return. Okay, all right. I'm going to ask you another polling question just to see how you have been thinking about this. Are you an eligible employer for this? So let's just shoot out that poll to see if you are an eligible employer. These are the standard types that we have. And if you are an employer, so you hire and pay people, these are the four primary categories. We do have partnerships as well. There's a few little special rules around partnerships, but as long as you're one of these types of entities, you're going to qualify as an eligible employer to receive the wage subsidy. So I'm just going to leave that up for another minute or so to see if I have anything. I see a few questions have come in, so let me go check those out. You're asking about, one person's asking about $5,000 prior to March 18th. Does that qualify as income for either sole proprietors or shareholders in regards to the CERB? I'm going to talk about CERB separately from this, so if you can just wait for that, that would be great. For self-employed, it is the CERB program, so we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a little bit. Has they made anything available for owners of businesses who pay themselves dividends instead of salary? So you wouldn't qualify for the wage subsidy, but you would qualify for CERB. So we will be talking about that in a little bit. Yes, your government funding, if you're a nonprofit organization, you can decide whether you want to include that or not include that in your fund, in your revenue calculations. Sole employed, do I qualify for the wage subsidy? So you have your own incorporated company and you're in a sole employee, do you qualify for the wage subsidy? If you had paid yourself salary prior to March 15th, you would qualify. Okay, and whatever that salary amount was. And if an employee is paid 75% of the pre-pandemic wages but does not continue working, it will be completely covered by, see how is their pre-pandemic calculated? So what we have for what is the 75% baseline calculated on, we take the weekly earnings for the period from January 1st to March 15th and use that to calculate out the average. If the person was not working, you do have the ability to exclude weeks to make sure that you're calculating out a reasonable average. So that allows you to continue with that. The definition of government funding is not 100% clear, and I would direct you to talk to your accountant to review your specific funding components if you're a nonprofit or a registered charity. Would you qualify if you pay bonus at the end of the year instead of a monthly salary? You're supposed to have paid them in this current year. So I'm not sure when your year end was or when you did that, but you would turn it into a weekly salary for year-to-date earnings. All right, so that's my questions covered off. Thanks for those. I do appreciate it. I don't know where my poll question went. Let me go see if I can. I don't know how to get my poll question back there, Tala. Is it possible you could shoot up the results for that poll? I did it 4 minutes ago when I
launched
to look
it for everyone to see. It looks like taxable corporation was 62%.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks. Not sure how I made it disappear. Okay. That's the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. I do encourage you to go to the link that's on the slides there, or you can just go to canada.ca and you'll be able to find the link there to get to it. And I do encourage you to walk through the process and download that spreadsheet if you don't wish to use this one from tax templates. Again, the advantage of tax templates is it accounts for the other benefits that you have available. All right, very good. So that's the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. I guess the question is, who is an eligible employee? So let's pop out that question to see if you would have an idea who are eligible employees. So what of those do you have to have in order to have an eligible employee for the wage subsidy? It's I see the vast majority of people have caught the right concept here. Great to see that. I'll just let a few more people vote in for that. Very good. All of the above, I'll give you a hint, is the correct answer. It must be somebody that is working, an individual that's working for you. They must be working in Canada. So if you had somebody working in the US or some other country and you were paying them from Canada, they're not employed in Canada, they don't qualify. And you must have baseline remuneration. So that's where that bonus issue comes in that we spoke about during the questions and answers there just a moment ago. I haven't seen any more votes since then, so I'm just going to say show results to everyone. So as you can see, vast majority of people did pick that up. All of the above is the correct answer to that. So you have to be an eligible employer and you have to have eligible employees. And as long even non-arm's length employees are qualified in here, as I mentioned in the question and answer, you do have to have, though, that baseline remuneration period covered off. And then you're good to go. There are some other minor restrictions on the amounts that you can get for non-arm's length payments, but it's not significant and really wouldn't impact the vast majority of people that are in that situation. All right. Thank you for answering that poll. Appreciate it. Let's go have a look at the next program here. That's extending the work share program. So this is a program that you apply for, and what you're doing here is you're going to a group of employees and saying, listen, we just don't have the volume of work that we had earlier, and what we need to do is get everybody to cut back by 10% minimum up to 60% of your regular work hours. Okay, so this is a program that you have a separate application for. That link will take you to the place where you go through to do the application. You make the application. It's quite detailed. What happens is once you've made the application and it's been approved, all of those employees that have signed up to do a work share, you pay them whatever you would pay them for the hours that they do work. And for the hours that they don't work, for those hours, they're able to get their EI benefits. So everybody's EI rates are a little bit different, but it does give us the ability to have that option for us to go in and take advantage of it. So a person would typically receive about 50 to 55% of their normal wages for those hours that they gave up as part of the work sharing program. Under COVID, that's been dramatically extended from the 38 weeks that was previously available now to 76 weeks. And instead of this taking over a month to get processed, they're processing these now in 10 days. So that's what they're saying on their site. So it is a great way for us to be able to continue to pay people, have them work a little bit less, and still have them get some EI benefits as well. Of course, they must be an employee that would otherwise qualify for EI. So that's the work share program. The next program is, let me click my little clicker here. The 10% wage subsidy. Same group as the other wage subsidy, the 75%, same group of people all are in here. It must be a Canadian-controlled private corporation. You have to have already had a business number, payroll, and be enrolled in the payroll program as of March 18th. And what happens here is any taxable income that you pay to people, wages, bonuses, etc., to an eligible employee, you get 10% of that back. Now, this 10% is taken off of the 75%. So the wage subsidy could be reduced down to 65% when you take advantage of this 10% wage subsidy program. So that is a little bit of a difference there for us. And we do have to realize that there are other maximums in this program as well. So let's go have a look at what those maximums are. 10%. March 18th to June 19th, a maximum of $1,375 per eligible employee, and you're limited to just $25,000 as an employer. So it's not a lot of money. The advantage that this program has is you don't have to pay into your regular payroll remittance into CRA. You take the 10% off the income tax component of your remittance. So it improves your cash flow a little quicker than you get with the 75%. So take the 10%, get those funds in, and then take that off of the 75% wage subsidy, which you're going to be applying for online for each period. There's 3 periods specified there for that. Okay, so there is no reduction in revenue required here. It's just straight out 10% wage subsidy. So everybody that's a Canadian controlled private corporation or those others that were in the previous slide there, they all qualify. There's no other restrictions other than you have to have the people, the correct type of organization. So there's no revenue drop or any other measures that they're dealing with for this particular program, 10% wage subsidy. My slides seem to be in a little different order than they originally were. Eligible employers for that wage sharing program. I'm not sure how these slides got mixed up. Year-round business, private business. The big one here is you have to have at least 2 employees for the work share to work. So you need to have 2 employees in the group that have agreed to do work share in order to qualify for the work share program. And again, this is a separate application that you submit to take advantage of it. Canadian Summer Jobs Program. So at this point, those applications would have already been filled. So you would have completed these back in January and February. The actual deadline for filing was March. But they have made some minor changes, up to 100% of minimum hourly wage, whatever that is in your province. And you can change your job activities now to allow more jobs to qualify under the program. So in-person to digital and remote operations is now fully accepted. Takeout delivery and delivery in a service industry, or any kind of programs for that would help people vulnerable in the COVID-19 population. So if you've already got applications in and you're thinking, oh, darn it, I can't use these now because the program is not the same as it was because of the restrictions we're under, it's a good chance that those programs, you can still take advantage of this funding. So I know a lot of registered charities and nonprofit organizations take care of this. A lot of other organizations like golf courses and others take advantage of this program. So there's still great opportunity for you to be able to employ people through the summer jobs program. I also want to point out that it's got a dramatic extension here. It's now going to go all the way to February 28th, 2021. So that really allows us to be able to take advantage of this funding over a much longer period of time than normal. Typically, it's just running while university is out. So university is, who knows when it'll come back. So this gives us the ability to take advantage of that. All right, it's coming up to half past. I'm just going to go check. I got a couple more new questions in here. I'm going to go have a peek at those. I guess if I scroll down, I can find them. What if I am an SMB on an annual salary? What happens if I am on ineligible dividend diet? If you are on that, if you're paying yourself salary, you just figure out what the weekly payment is for your salary. And if you're on ineligible dividends, that's not salary, so it wouldn't qualify for the 75%. And when we get to the program for self-employed, you can see what you can do for that, because ineligible dividends do qualify as earned income. I took out an annual salary for my business in 2019. What support can I expect from Canadian wage subsidy? Did you take out any salary in 2020? That's the big question there. If not, when we talk about the other CERB, we can talk about what the components are of that. How does one modify Canada Summer job application? Submit it back in February. I suggest you talk to, you should have a representative that you can speak to, but they do have details on the jobs, Canadian Jobs website that defines what you need to do and the steps required to do that. It's not overly complicated. Okay, great questions. Thank you very much. Let's go have a look at our next program, which is deferred payment of income taxes. So this includes corporations as well as self-employed and also personal tax. And it includes not just balances owing, but installments. So if you had taxes owing after March 18th, you have until September 1st, 2020 to make the payment. CRA talks about what a great, how much money that they're giving to people under this program. I want to point out it is a deferred payment. You still have to pay the taxes. So it's a temporary relief for your cash flow to allow you to postpone those things until September 1st. It is not 100% clear how they are going to calculate interest owing on payments that you didn't make. So if you had installments and you continue not to make installments, I don't know how they're going to calculate out that tax, that the interest that they would typically charge to you. It's not clear from their documentation at this point in time. But you do have the ability at this to put those payments off until September 1st. So if you're an individual or a corporation, those balances owing, so self-employed individual, your taxes are owing April 30th. That is after March 18th. You'd have until September 1st to make the payment. If you're a corporation, you have a filing deadline, December 31st year end, you'd have a March 31st tax payment deadline. And that is now extended to September 1st as well. Okay, so it is phrased slightly different depending on the websites and web pages you go to. They're due on September 1st, so that's the date. Okay, and full details of that are available at the link there on that on the slide deck, and that link will work in the PDF that we're going to supply to you at the end of today's session. So that's our deferred payments of income taxes. I was a bit shocked by this, but they're actually going to allow you to defer GST and HST and custom and duty. So if it was due March 27th to the end of May, any taxes owing for GST, HST, and custom duties, those have now been moved to June 30th. The reason this is surprising to me is, as you know, these funds are actually being held in trust. It does have the advantage of us now having that period of time to collect our accounts receivable, to get the funds in so that we can make our HST payments, which is a nice thing for us to have the ability to do. I don't know about your businesses, but in mine, we do have, in an accounting practice, we do have March and April, a lot of revenue that comes in there, and quite a bit of it's not paid until later. So this gives us that ability to take that time and collect those funds, our accounts receivable, so that we do have the funds in place to be able to make our deferred GST, HST, custom and duty payments. Okay. Again, we don't know what's going to happen as far as interest goes for late filing here. As you know, being trust funds, you shouldn't be late filing. They're quite aggressive on the collection in the event of you not making those payments. All right, let's go have a look at access to credit. So this is just straight out loans. It is 80% guaranteed by the government, which means that it should be fairly easy for you to get this credit. There's no benefit in these loans, like there's no forgiveness part or anything else. This loan system is just the fact that it is a loan guaranteed by the Export Development Canada. and BDC is involved with it as well. It is for just operational cash flow, so you can't be out borrowing money if you want to buy a new piece of equipment or a truck or something else. It is strictly a cash flow component here, and loans are available up to $6.2 million for a company. Okay, and so it is a great option if you need to get a little bit of cash flow in there, but there is no forgiveness on any part of this. It's just the guarantee that's making it easier for you to get that credit. So we do have the Canadian Emergency Business Account. This is up to a $40,000 interest-free loan. And the only requirement is that you have to have paid out wages to people in 2019 of at least $20,000 and no more than $1.5 million. So if you had a T4 summary issued for 2019 and it had $20,000 in income on the top line there, you are eligible for this program. Most banks have been approved at this point. In fact, I think virtually all major banks in Canada are now approved to process these for you. So you can simply go in and have them process it. There's no requirement for you to talk to any government entities. You just go to your regular bank to be able to receive the funds. So they're streamlining it as best they can to make it as easy as possible for you to go in and get the funds. And here's where the forgiveness comes in. Depending on what your balance was at December 31st, what is the date for that December 31st, 2020, that it will help you determine how much you get to get as a forgiveness amount. It's up to 25%. So no interest until January 1st, 2023. Your balance after December 31st, 2020, the balance that determines your credit amount. And interest does start on January 1st, 2023. So if you qualify for this, you get the $40,000. If you've got the whole loan paid back by January 20, on or before December 31st, 2022, you can get up to 25% of whatever that balance is available as a forgiveness of the loan. So I think for a lot of businesses, this is a great thing. You can do this right away, get the $40,000 in to help you with your cash flow. Your bank will walk through the entire process. As long as you paid 75% of the term loan as of January 1st, 2021, you can get 25% of it forgiven. Okay. Pay it back. As of that date, it turns into a regular 5% interest-bearing term loan that you have to have completely paid out by December 31st, 2025. So 3 years interest-free, 2 years with interest. If you can get it paid back, you get the whole 25% of your balance available as a nice little credit. Okay. So if you qualify, I think this is definitely a thing to get. All right. Let's talk about the CERB. So this is $2,000 every 4 weeks for up to 16 weeks. You've been able to apply for this for some time now at the canada.ca website. You have to be at least 15 years and you have to live in Canada. You have to have stopped working, and this is the catch for those of you that were paying yourself via dividends. You'd have to stop working because of COVID in order to qualify for CERB. If you're eligible for EI, regular or sickness benefits, those also would allow you to continue to receive funding under CERB. You can't quit your job. You have to be laid off. And here's that $5,000 number that we've been talking about a couple of times, and questions that people have asked. Had income of at least $5,000 in 2019 or in the 12 months prior to the date of their application. They did make a change since this was first announced. You can continue to earn up to $1,000 per month and still qualify for CERB. So if you had a small part-time job. And it does extend to workers and seasonal workers whose EI has been exhausted. And they just announced today, there's no real details on this. They're also going to have a emergency response benefit for students. It's going to be $1,250 a month, $1,250 a month. I think for a lot of people, they have to realize that you have to stop working, and that's the real catch to this one. You have to stop working. You have to shut down. If you've got a small business, you have to have it shut down in order to qualify for CERB. If you've been paying yourself wages, you'd be much better off if your revenue has dropped 15% in March, 30% in April, compared to the prior year, or the average of January and February 2020, 75%, $847 a week. Again, it's a much better setup for you than this CERB program. One, you get to continue working and keep your business operational, and two, $847 times 4 is more than $2,000. So pick the plan that works and that is appropriate for you. I have found a lot of people have rushed to do the wage subsidy and actually filled out the CERB form in error. And so just be careful when it comes time to do that. It's important that we complete the correct forms and get the correct components in there. I got just 2 more slides, and then I got a whole bunch of questions. So I'm going to go to the next slide here, and that is provincial programs. We have a big country, and we have a lot of provinces, and every one of them has their own programs. So I would encourage you to go to this lovely interactive website at CBC News, pick your province, and it will allow you to then see what those programs are in your province. It's reasonably up to date. I didn't notice if it has the new rent programs in there yet or not. Keep your eye open for those. I didn't speak to those directly today. They're still not clear on how, on how those are going to work, but they have been announced. So it is important for you to follow those as well. But this link here will take you to a nice website. Pick your province and you'll see all the programs. And they break it out nicely between different groups, individuals, self-employed, businesses, etc. All right. So I'm going to answer your questions. I just want to remind you again that these are constantly changing, so you do have to go to the links that I provide throughout the slide deck here that you can download and keep yourself up to date. Please talk to your accountant to make sure that you're picking the appropriate configuration that makes the most sense for you. I am going to send out the last poll question now. And this is what is required to qualify for CERB? And go in and pick what you want. I think the one that kind of catched me by surprise was for self-employment. When they say income, they mean not your gross revenue, but what your income was from self-employed. So if you had $5,000 in gross revenue and $2,000 in expenses, your income from self-employed is not $5,000 for this program. It is $3,000. It is your amount that is taxable that they're looking at for that self-employment income amount. So I got quite a few people that did vote through there. I'll just leave it open for another minute. It's important that you do respond here. Just want to make sure everybody's got it correct. Okay, so it is all of the above. So you didn't quit your job. You have employment or self-employment income. So that's what's taxable on your personal tax return of at least $5,000. It could be a 12-month period for those of you that are self-employed. And you stopped working. You can't be working and collecting this. You have to have stopped working. At least 15 years of age, and you have to reside in Canada. I'm going to show the results out. So there are a few people there. I just want you to realize it is all of those are all required to meet the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. Okay, I have a whole bunch of polling questions. A whole bunch of questions. So let me see if I can go in and sort through those now and answer those. Tala, do you have anything that you want to say
while you get
to
the questions? I just wanted to let everyone know. So you earlier in the session you did mention CPE credit for any CAs out there that need it. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a link to an evaluation form in the general chat. And so if you require a CPE certificate, please you have to fill out this evaluation so we know who to send the certificate to. And that way you can get credit for today's session. So without, of course, I know you're reading through the questions, but just wanted to say thank you so much, Ward, for all the hard work in putting this together. I think people really appreciated it. And of course, going through the questions right now, I'm sure they'll appreciate that too. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, sir. So we'll see if we can't get a few of these answered in the next 10 minutes or so. Which program is for self-employed? That's the CERB program, but it means you have to stop working. There's still talk about them changing this program around a bit. So you could continue to work and make $1,000, but you can't make more than that self-employed, and you'd qualify to use the CERB program. The wage subsidy, you haven't had the money to be able to pay them and you want to back pay them. You have to have paid them in order to be able to get the wage subsidy, and there is a delay in the wage subsidy. You most likely qualify for that loan, so you could get the loan, back pay them, get the wage subsidy, and then when you get the wage subsidy, use that against the that $40,000 loan. And I think that's really the purpose of that loan, because there's a lot of people that would be in the same situation. They don't have the cash to be able to pay it. I understand we have the option to include government funding or not in our income. What's the defined as government funding? That's very specific on their website. If you want to send me an email, I can deal with that directly. It's can be a complicated question, as you know, with government funding. Would I qualify if I paid bonuses at the end of the year instead of monthly salary? I think I already answered that question. If they had not paid the employee, also known as the owner, for the last few months, is the employee eligible? They wouldn't have had pay within the baseline remuneration period. So you could start paying them now and then pick it up in the next period. Potentially. Work share, does there have to be more than one employee? Yes, you need a minimum of 2 to qualify for work share. Now I want to correct myself. The person asking if I haven't paid myself, if I can now pay myself and get the wage subsidy. If you didn't pay within that January, February, and March time period, I don't believe you do qualify. What if I'm incorporated annual salary? I already answered that question. Let me scroll down to the bottom of these questions and work my way up. Does ineligible dividend qualify as part of the $20,000 minimum wage requirement for the $40,000 business loan? No, it does not. I hoped that they'd change it. It does call. The only thing that the ineligible dividend qualifies for, so you can qualify for the CERB. For CERB, if still getting paid less than $1,000 for self-employed, you get the remainder to total $2,000. You get the remainder to total to $3,000. potentially, if you're self-employed. Gosh, that thing scrolls fast. Sorry about that. What are nonprofit charity that hires seasonal summer staff to provide kids day camps during the summer? Our donation revenue is down substantially. What would a charity qualify for? So you would qualify for those staff members that are continuing to work under the wage subsidy. You potentially could qualify for the $40,000 loan. Those people that work for you in the summer may or may not qualify for CERB. They would have to look at their individual circumstances for that. When calculating our company earnings, we get a management fee annually in December. Do I need to factor that into earnings? Well, if that happens to be $1,000 a month that you regularly get, I don't know if it's from a related company or not. There is specific rules around income from related companies. You can't use that as a method to fluctuate your income to meet the requirements. So you'd have to check to see. I'd have to know a little bit more details about that to be able to give you a clear answer. No payroll as a startup, micro-lending, quick cash flow assistance, any amount between $5,000 and $25,000. My credit score is fair. How do I get a quick help? Which banks or institutions? No payroll in 2020. There is the other loan that has the guarantees that it's possible to get that from. There are some micro-lending programs, as you've mentioned, that may entitle you to do that. If you want to send me an email, I can get back to you on that. How do I best determine if wage subsidy is best for self-employed? Wage subsidy wouldn't qualify for self-employed. It would only be CERB. If you are self-employed and you have hired people to work in your self-employed business, those people may qualify for you would qualify for the wage subsidy if you've met the other requirements to be able to pay people. So as an individual that has hired other people, you would qualify for those people to pay them the wage subsidy. For an employee on an annual contract, the contract ends in April, employment contract not renews, would they get the $2,000 benefits? Yes, if the contract, they didn't, what would they normally do at the end of April when their contract ends? Where would they typically go to work? Whether they would get CERB or not would depend on that. Their contract ending in April is not the result of COVID, and therefore on the surface wouldn't apply. They wouldn't apply for CERB, but they would be EI eligible potentially. I'm not sure how you're paying them under the employment contract, and if they are, they then would be able to qualify under CERB. CERB, you can think of it as a replacement for EI in that sort of case. I'm a marketing consultant, so you must be self-employed. Which subsidy program should I apply for? Again, self-employed people, really, you have to meet the requirements of CERB. So you apply for CERB on a month-to-month basis. And so the months that you don't have income, you would qualify for the CERB. The months that you do have income in excess of $1,000, you wouldn't qualify for the CERB. And that goes through a 16-week, aka 4-month period for you to go and check that out. Does the income of $5,000 have to be income from Canada and not from a foreign country? The income has to be on your Canadian tax return. So I had an interesting case where somebody said, I haven't actually filed a tax return in 10 years. I do live in Canada, but all my work is offshore, and so I didn't bother to file a tax return. And now they want us to file for CERB. That wouldn't qualify because you didn't have taxable income. And that's the number, the 5,000 number. Does the 5,000 have to be all from employment income? So if you have a mix and match, if your taxable income from employment, including self-employment, so if you had a T4 from somebody, that would be employment income, and that would meet the $5,000 requirements if the two added together to give you $5,000. Can it be used to buy inventory, for example? That's the CEBA loans. That would be regular operational cash flow and inventory purchase, so it should qualify for that. There is a minimum payroll for the wage, for the forgiveness loan, and that is $20,000 in 2019. T5s do not include, are not included as wages. I know eligible payroll, T5s are not eligible payroll, so you don't qualify for the CEBA. I don't qualify either for the very same reason. All right. If there's other questions that come up, please don't hesitate to email me. My email was on the second or third slide there today. I am rather swamped with components now, so give me about 24 hours to get back to you. I'd like to say thank you very much once again for attending today. I hope you enjoyed the session. Please make sure to download the material to have the links. I think that's a valuable component. And Tala, do you have anything else to say?
The only thing I'd like to add is if you know anyone who's
day?
interested in attending the same session but in French, that'll be tomorrow. And there's a link in the handouts to that. But thank you so much, Ward, and thank you everyone for joining us. We're really happy we could bring this information to you. Take care.
Yes, bye for now.